This is Jim Fetzer, your host on The Real Deal, with my very special guest today, Judy Griego and her husband Geronimo, who are the parents of a young man, Benjamin, who was, according to the Army, the subject of a suicide, but where they have a lot of serious questions about whether or not that's the case, and I think that their concerns are very well founded. This is the third program in a series I'm devoting to suspicious non-combat military deaths. Judy and Geronimo, welcome to The Real Deal.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Judy, why don't you tell us a little bit about Benjamin prior to his enlistment in the, I take it was the Army National Guard?
Yes, Benjamin loved guns. We lived out in the country, 6 acres of property out there, and they go out in the back and shoot rabbits. And he's always has had a fascination with guns and that type of stuff. So his father went to Vietnam. His older brother was in the Army also for like 7 years, and he just wanted to follow those footsteps. So he joined the Army when he was 19, and when he had re-enlisted again in March of that year of 2007 when he passed away.
Was it the Army National Guard or was it the Army regular Army?
No, it was the Army National Guard.
It was the Army National Guard.
Yes, sir.
Where did he undergo his had he graduated from high school there in New Mexico?
Actually, he didn't graduate. He went ahead and got his GED in the service. He went ahead and got his GED in the Army.
Okay. And he was in the service for a number. How old was he when he enlisted? 19?
19.
So he was actually in the Army for about 7 years.
Right. He had re-enlisted in March of 2007.
Geronimo, tell me, what was your impression of how Benjamin liked the Army?
Well, he was pretty much involved with the Army instruction side of it, and he worked for a WTC program, which was a warrior transition course, and he trained soldiers in a combative sort of way, because he was like a level 3 combatant, and he loved his job. I mean, he really did. He felt good about going, and he had a lot of time off with his family. He got some time off, and he just enjoyed the experience, of Army life and combative situations.
And I take it he attained the rank of sergeant. Was that E5 or E6?
No, that was an E5, sir.
He was E5, yeah. So he was doing well in the Army. What was his MOS? What was his combat training?
Yes, that's what he did.
So was he an infantryman in terms of his military classification?
Well, he was an instructor, not actually for that WTC program at the Guards in White Sands Missile Range.
At the White Sands Missile Range?
Yes.
Did he? How did he like his recruit training and all that?
Well, all he said was positive things about it. He enjoyed working with the new people, and he was real social and loved life. He just got along well with pretty much everybody. He was having a few problems there at the end that we'll probably talk about later. But he was happy. He loved to fish, and he loved to hunt. We got together a lot. In fact, we had a fishing trip planned for the week after he passed away, and he was coming to Clovis, my hometown, because he lived in Rio Rancho, and he was coming up there to fish with me, and I was going to call his wife to join him there, and it was normal. We hung out in Clovis a lot, even though he lived in Rio Rancho.
How long had he been married?
He had been married, I think, 7 years or 6 years.
And he had some children?
He had a daughter, a 2-year-old when he passed away. She's 3 now, almost 4.
Judy, I take it you were in frequent contact with Benjamin.
Yes. The newspaper exaggerated the number of times we spoke to him, but we spoke about twice a day on an average. he would always call me going to work and call me coming out of work, because that's the time that he was, usually reported to work around the same time that I did. So he spoke to his dad constantly. Also, he usually called him in the evening or sometimes during the day. So we were in constant communication with Dan. We knew what was going on with him, and what kind of a day he had. He always kind of shared everything that went on with his day on a day-to-day basis.
How long had he been in this combat training range at White Sands?
Oh, I think probably a year. But he was full-time National Guard. He was there like, I don't know, 6 months, and then he'd have a little break, and then he'd go back again. So he was that was his main source of income and his main work that he did. He had even talked about going to Iraq and fighting there and whatever they do. But there's where we were with them on it.
Did he have any tours in Iraq?
No, he had not. The people that he served the last course that he taught, there were 3 men there that had come back from Iraq.
What did he tell you about him?
Well, they had transitioned so many people from. What this course does is it helps the Navy and the Air Force and Coast Guard members transition into the Army. And he had trained a few units there. And the last one that he had, he just kept saying that they were not his friends. I know the Army and all their paperwork that they sent through, and the Freedom of Information Act statements stated that he had that they were brothers from another mother, and I didn't really appreciate that. It wasn't something that that was comfortable with me.
Yeah, could you explain a little bit about that, Judy? What this is saying? This was Benjamin's phrase, or this was the phrase of these guys that came back from Iraq?
No, these were the phrases of the men that came back from Iraq, and the statements that were made on the Freedom of Information Act. They said that Benjamin was his brother, as one of the men that we suspected had a lot to do, and the one that that he had a lot of altercations with. He also stated that it was his brother from another mother. And then one of the statements when we met with the CID agent in March the 3rd, there is a colonel that was involved with the meeting also, and he also made that remark, which I really did not appreciate, and I appreciated. And I wrote him back on it, and I said, those were not his friends. This was probably the only unit that Benjamin had worked with that he made those kind of comments, that the guys were not someone that he would invite to his home or want to hang out, when on his time off.
Now, just for my clarity about the relationships here and so forth, are you and Geronimo Native Americans?
No, we're Hispanic.
You're Hispanic. And so, of course, Benjamin was Hispanic. But these guys were probably not Hispanic.
No, these guys were Hispanic, but there were Southern Hispanics. Most of them were.
Southern Hispanic?
I'm sorry?
Southern Hispanic?
Yes, we lived in eastern New Mexico. My sons were brought up in country, music, and they didn't speak Spanish, but they understood. And
yes.
The men that he worked with were out of Las Cruces. They were closer to the border, so they were more into what was going on as far as lingo and some of the statements that they made to him at that DVD that we got from the captain clearly shows, the derogatory remarks that they threw at my son, of how he was on the eastern part of the state, and how he was, I guess, someone from Texas, which is we were on the borderline of Texas.